Reality is based on our beliefs, and there's a thing that where we all have a collective belief system where we're all connected. We have a collective belief system where, everything that's going on, all the craziness in the world right now, there's an old belief system that's been breaking apart. It's an old system that's not working. Welcome back to another episode on Into the Vortex with Aaron Dowdy. My name's Aaron Dowdy, and today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be going deep on understanding some of the energy dynamics that I've been learning as of recently. These are little differences in the way of understanding some concepts, some energy concepts that I believe will really change your life in a powerful way. And I'm also going to be sharing some stories with you about just like things that happen in my daily life, how I give things certain energy, how I moderate and manage my own energy, and why that is so necessary. If you want to create the lifestyle of your dreams, it is so necessary for you to manage your energy in a powerful way. And I've learned how to do that. And sometimes I slip up, to be honest. There are times that I find even right now in a way, I'm kind of, I realize that my personality, I become very obsessed with certain things. I have a very obsessive, almost addictive personality, what people would call that. Now, maybe that's an identity that I also need to drop in a way. But when I look at my life, I can see that when I look back, there was always something I was very, very passionate about, even if it wasn't something you would normally be passionate about, like wasn't making YouTube videos. But before that, there was a period of my life when I was like smoking a lot of weed, for example. And I was super passionate about it. Like this is like back in 2011, 12, right before my spiritual awakening. And I was smoking a lot because I was combating the side effects of Adderall, which was a prescription drug given for people that have ADHD. I'd go into work every day, work in a sales commission job, selling women's shoes, and I'd go home at night, and it was hard to wind down because you're so wound up from Adderall. And then you crash, and you can't eat, you can't sleep. Well, side effects of cannabis or weed is you can eat, sleep good. So I'm trying not to call weed, trying to call it cannabis because it's part of plant medicine. I don't smoke cannabis, or if I do, it is extremely occasional, like once a year or something like that. But I just know, like knowing what I know about plant medicine and whether that's like San Pedro or whether that's ayahuasca or whether that's mushrooms or psilocybin. Weed is like a very harsh term for like, understanding that these they're in a way plant consciousness that are here to teach us things. I think that sometimes people become a little bit too reliant on some of the plant medicines. I do plant medicine pretty much twice a year. I do ayahuasca, and then a couple times a year I'll do something called Wachuma, which is San Pedro, which is a very heart-based kind of medicine. In a way, normally when I do that, I go to Costa Rica to do it where it's legal. But it's similar to peyote in some ways, but it's could be a very powerful teacher in a way. Not recommending everybody just get up and go do it. Do your own research. But just a little side note. Okay, I'm trying to call weed cannabis to be a little bit more respectful to the plant consciousness because I did learn a lot from smoking cannabis. I learned a lot about myself. I think I think that cannabis is a very healing plant. Sometimes maybe a little bit numbing, but very healing. And I think it helped me heal through a lot of the childhood trauma that I went through, but then I was using it as a crutch. And for like 2 years, I was super passionate about smoking cannabis. I would smoke cannabis pretty much all day, every day when I wasn't working. I'd go work during the day doing Adderall, go home at night, smoke cannabis. I'd hang out with friends. We'd play basketball. It was like so much fun. It was really like some very memorable times of my life. However, I was super passionate about it. I had different pieces for it. I had different strains. I went to a guy that it was a legal caregiver, and he had like different organic strains, and I knew all the different types, and there were different types that were for different things, and I was super passionate about it. And then when I gave that up, it was when I started meditating, and I started feeling completely different about myself. And then I became extraordinarily passionate about meditation and mantras and I was studying a lot of Eastern philosophy at the time too. And I was very passionate about that. And for like a year or two, I was very passionate about that. And then I was more into like the spiritual new age information and learning about like conspiracy theories for a while. Whatever it was, whatever I was studying, I was extraordinarily passionate about. And I think that that's what helped me to learn as much as I have, or I've been able to kind of like dissect a lot of different information and create it into videos. And then eventually, working that 9-to-5 job, I went from Nordstrom's to Barney's, New York, worked there for 5 years, and then decided I want to go full-time on YouTube. Then I became obsessed with making YouTube videos. And for like 2 or 3 years, all I did was make YouTube videos. Every day. Every single day, make YouTube videos. All I was thinking about was what video I'm going to make tomorrow, what new video can I make, what can I learn about the algorithm, what can I learn about marketing. Then after I was really focused on YouTube videos, I learned about internet marketing. I learned like, oh, I can create courses that like help people do XYZ. And there's like a whole system to building an email list. There's like all this different aspect of online marketing. And I learned as much as I could about that. And I spent like a year learning that. And when I spent a year learning that, it took a little bit away from YouTube. YouTube kind of wasn't as like headstrong because I was putting my energy into something new. And then even now, my main focus is not YouTube anymore. My main focus isn't even really internet marketing anymore. My new focus is this new thing that I'm building, I've been talking about for a while, that I've been working on. And more coming about that soon. But anyways, because my energy shifts, anytime energy shifts, it's going to take a little bit away from one of the main things you were focused on. Like I was talking to my buddy Victor about this yesterday. It really does require a certain amount of energy. This is one of the biggest realizations I've had when it comes to success, when it comes to just about anything. It requires an intense amount of focus to really gain maximum momentum. Now, right now, a way that I'm doing that maybe is somewhat helpful, but then I become a little bit neurotic about, is my fitness. If you go into my YouTube feed right now on my TV, which is right here, and I watch, I'm like bouncing on this trampoline right behind me, watching that for a couple hours a day. I think I'm probably getting dopamine spikes from learning more and more about health. But literally, I'm like counting all my macros, which means I'm weighing all my food, cooking all my food, knowing exactly how much I'm eating for the most part every day. Then I'm going to the gym 3-4 times a week, and I'm pushing it. Progressive overload, meaning like I'm giving my muscles more stimulus than they had before and increasing that so that I can get more size. And I'm studying all this fitness stuff, and I become obsessed with it. And I look and I'm like, is this the best use of my energy? I'm like, well, I have certain goals. Like I got really lean. For those of you that didn't see like maybe my prior episodes, or I talked about how I lost 20 pounds of fat by doing shadow work. I'll link that below as well, that episode. But I lost 20 pounds in 3 months, and I was doing shadow work, and I was, of course, part of it is calorie deficit, stuff like that. But a lot of it was I was healing, coming aware of my own self-worth. And as I did more of the shadow work, it was like shedding that extra fat, because I gained that fat when I was going through a lot of emotional, like shadow work. And then letting go of it to me was like me working through that. So for 3 months, I was focused on that. Now I want to gain muscle. So now it's a little bit different philosophy than losing weight, obviously. And I'm learning as much as I can about it and become obsessed with it. But I'm realizing, this thing that I want to put out into the world, that I want to help a lot of people, want to help them, want to connect people all over the world that are like high vibe people and stuff. And that's what I'm focusing on the side. But I can't put as much energy toward that when I'm really focused on this other stuff. So it's finding a happy medium of a lot of this. But even I look at people like, for example, even when I went full-time on YouTube, YouTube was my main thing. That was it. I got up every day, thought about YouTube. That was my focus. When I look at the guys that are killing it on YouTube now, the way the YouTube algorithm works now more than ever is it's all based on watch time. The way that YouTube is set up is you have to make YouTube a full-time thing, and you have to be studying it. You have to really understand it. You have to really capture people's attention and constantly spike it. And it requires so much attention to do well that unless you make it your all, it's like very improbable to like gain a lot of momentum. Now, luckily, I have a YouTube channel with, that got in early. I'd say I was one of the, not the first by any means, but I was one of the first people really talking about certain concepts, I think, and that really helped because there wasn't as many people on YouTube creating videos. And now you got a lot of like, more, I don't know if you call it competition or just more people making YouTube videos. But it really requires all the attention. And I don't want to put all my, I don't want to like always be known as a YouTuber. So my goal is like, well, if my identity is that I want to create this new reality where I'm building this company and this like new thing that I'm doing, which includes an app with meditations and stuff like that. If I'm doing that and putting my energy into that, I can't keep putting as much energy into YouTube. So that was when I went from 6 days a week to 3 days a week. And then now on YouTube, the podcast episode, 2 episodes a week go on my podcast, and I take clips of that and put out in the YouTube videos to take care of those 2 videos. Also because I want to promote the podcast. So those of you watching this video right now, if you didn't know, there's a podcast, Into the Vortex with Aaron Doughty, on iTunes and Spotify. You'd subscribe to get the daily or the 2 times a week episodes. Plus, there's a backlog of mini episodes, very easy to download and listen to, just like this. But it's more casual, and it's like I share a lot more than I probably do. It's a different vibe, I'd say. However, when it comes to some of the energy dynamics I've realized with success in general, one of the most important things is understanding your own focus and what are you not addicted to, but obsessed with. And not that obsession always has to be a bad thing. You know, there are people that are obsessed with art. You know, I have a friend that's obsessed with art, and she's very good at it. I have, my brother, for example, he was an Army medic, and he is super passionate about doing and being like an assistant to medical, like he works in a hospital. And he's super passionate about helping people. He's super even though there's all this stuff going on in the world and there's a lot of risk, he loves it. He's super passionate about it. I'm happy for him because that's his obsession. And when things start to pull us, I've found a pattern for myself that sometimes when I've been doing a lot of shadow work this year, when I fall into certain relationships and certain wounds get triggered, sometimes I kind of put my frame to the side to then make my relationship like a main focus. And sometimes that's like it's like a childhood wound thing that comes up. But that's when I noticed that even in the past, I've put certain things to the side for this. And a lot of my own masculine integration over this last year has been me being really in my own frame and not surrendering that frame for something else in a way. And really having my priorities in check. But a lot of what I'm sharing right now is to help you understand, like, what is your one thing? What is the thing that you're most focused on? It doesn't have to even just be one thing, but it could be the thing of the week. Now, in general, though, if you want to gain momentum, setting the intention to find out what that is and to really commit to it has been very key for me. As I've focused more and more on that and just the one thing, it is so powerful. And if there's one thing I could tell you, it's really focus on something and realize you're not doing that thing to get certain result. You're doing that thing because it's who you are. That's one of the biggest teachings I share. This is a clip from the Daily Vortex podcast where I post 2 times a week, and we go really deep on understanding consciousness, understanding how to raise our vibration, how to bring these spiritual concepts down to earth in a relatable and practical way. For the whole entire episode, you can click the link below, but also subscribe to that of the Daily Vortex podcast on either iTunes or Spotify. That's where there are a backlog of over 100 episodes, plus the whole entire episode length is there. On this channel, you will only be seeing clips moving forward. So if you want the whole episodes, you can click the link below. You can subscribe. They're also very easy to listen to. They're automatically downloaded once you subscribe, plus you'll never miss an episode. So this is where most of my intention is and my energy is going these days, and I look forward to bringing you many more amazing episodes. But for the rest of this episode, you can click below and you can subscribe to the Daily Vortex podcast, and I look forward to helping you expand your consciousness in a very practical and relatable way. So I'll see you on the next episode, and as always, peace, much love, and namaste.